Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you had a great week. I hope you have a great day so far this Sunday. And I hope your Lenten journey's doing good. I hope that we talked about last week that if you slip up, that's okay. And if you can just, if we are called to keep going and keep striving for the goals that we set, right? So, and this is the third Sunday of Lent. So we're a little bit into it. We're right into it. I mean, we're still going on with our Lenten journey. So we're gonna go over the readings today, and the one I want to focus, of course, is the gospel, because it's something that we're not used to seeing. Right? We're used to seeing Jesus kind of glorifying, kind of also being, teaching a lesson. And in this passage, we see that a little bit, but we really see a different side of him. So in the first reading, right, if you're hopefully you're listening in mass, the first reading was about the book of Exodus, where the Lord is proclaiming through Moses, right, the 10 Commandments, right? These 10 Commandments, these not rules, but these, we can say rules, these 10 rules that that the Lord set in place for us to live a holy life, to kind of the 10 basic rules for us. And in the second reading, right, from Paul in St. Corinthians, he says, "For Jews demand signs, and Greeks seek wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and folly to Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men." So we'll see that play out in the gospel. And that's something I really want to focus on, is the gospel. And so we're in John chapter 2, verse 13 all the way through 25. And we're going to read it, and we'll break it down, because it's something that we're not used to seeing through Jesus, right? So here we go. This is called the cleansing of the temple. The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons, and the money changers at their business. And making a whip of cords, he drove them all, with the sheep and oxen, out of the temple, and he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. You shall not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." The Jews then said to him, "What sign have you to show us for your doing this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews then said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you will raise it up in 3 days?" But he spoke of the temple of his body. When therefore he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word which Jesus had spoken. Now, when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many believed in his name when they saw the signs which he did. But Jesus did not trust himself to them, because he knew all men and needed no one to bear witness of man, for he himself knew what was in man. So that's the gospel right there. And to me, when I read this, I was like, man, why is Jesus so angry? We're always used to Jesus, always calm, teaching a lesson, always self-controlled. But here, he lost it. He's like, he's fed up with it, right? And, when you read back through John, the word became flesh, the testimony of John the Baptist and the first disciples, right? And I don't think it's, how do I say it? There is a reason why this is in here, and there's a reason why John wrote this. It's not just some random, when Jesus is preaching, calling his first disciple, and then boom, he's angry, and it continues, right? I think there's a reason why John put this here, right? So we'll break it down. So Jesus, the Passover, right? This, I believe it's derived, this Passover feast was a tradition to worship God, to everybody, and it's not a holiday. I don't know if it's a holiday, but I know I think it was a tradition to where everyone gathered around to worship God, right? And and Jesus went up there. The last time he went up there, I think he was 12 years old. I think it's in the book of Matthew, maybe Mark. I'm not sure. I forgot which book it was. But the last time he visited there he was 12 years old, right? And he was the Son of God then, but he didn't know it at the time. But now he's older and knows his objective at the end of his life, and now he knows it, and now he's here. Right, in the temple, he sees this kind of marketplace, right? This kind of, selling of sheep and oxen and what else? Pigeons. And, these were sacrificial animals. That this is the temple of God, right? This is where sacrifices were made. And this is also a place of worship, right? So when Jesus sees this, he's like, what the heck is going on, right? This is supposed to be a place of worship. How can anybody worship with all this money changing here, the kind of sheep and cattle here? And then this is a place of worship. How can anyone worship with all this going on? And also seeing this kind of marketplace of trade, right? And so Jesus it says he's taken making a whip of cords. So I imagine that he's furious. He took some leather straps, smacked it together, and started like chasing around these animals and telling them to go, get them out of here, right? And he says, take these things away. You shall not make my Father's house a house of trade, right? Take these things away. You shall not make my Father's house of trade, right? I think Jesus was furious because this is the house of God, right? This is the temple of God. And it's a place of worship. It's a place of sacrifice, right? And why is it like this? This is a place where everyone should gather around and worship God. And you made it a marketplace. Why? Right? And his disciples in the back, they remember that it was written, and back in the book of Psalms, right? Because of course the disciples knew the Old Testament. It was knowledge to them. It was something they needed to know, and they must know, right? They remember from in the book of Psalms that King David wrote, "Zeal for your house will consume me," right? And the Jews said to him, what sign have you to show us for doing this, right? And we read back in the second reading, right, that Paul said, "For Jews demand signs," right, and Greeks seek wisdom, right? These Jews are demanding a sign, right? And sorry, give me 1 second. Oh yeah, and the Jews said, what sign do you have to show us? Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple in 3 days, and I will raise it up." And then the Jews said, it has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you're gonna think that you raise it up in 3 days? Sure, okay, right? But Jesus knew, and the disciples knew, that Jesus is talking about his body, right? And listen to say that, and just to note that he didn't say, "I will destroy this temple." He said, "You destroy this temple, and I will raise it up in 3 days," right? And the disciples in the back knew what he was talking about, right? He already said his death already, saying, I will die, and I'm, he said it before. That's why the disciples were in the back saying, he said this before, and he's saying it now. And that's why they believed in more. And that's why they kept following him, because he's saying scriptures back in the Old Testament, and now he's kind of foreshadowing his death here, right? So, and Jesus says, and it's really hidden, but like we said, this is the temple of worship, right? This is the temple of God, and he's telling them, destroy this temple and I will raise it up. He's talking about his body, right? And we see it unfold, and that's what they did to him at the end of his life. They destroyed his body, right? They took him up on a tree, nailed him, whipped him, did whatever humanly possible to torture him, and hung him up. They destroyed his body. Remember? And that's what he's saying. That's what he told them. He said, "You destroy this body and I will raise it up in 3 days." And he's talking about right after he died. On that Sunday, he rose up from the dead. And I don't know if you ever seen The Passion of the Christ, but it's a great movie. But as soon as Jesus died, that temple cracked. I don't know if you remember that scene, but as soon as Jesus died, that temple split open, right? But the temple was where God meets man. By man, I mean humankind. God meets man, and God is present here. That's what this temple was for. This temple of worship, to get closer to God, to get as humanly possible to Him. And like we said, these sacrifices were meant for God, right? At the time. But now we see a new temple. Jesus is the temple, right? And even in the I believe it's the book of Corinthians. It's the book of John. It's a verse that goes, do you not know that that you are the temple of God, right? That verse saying, but Jesus is the new temple. Jesus is, where God meets man. But in Jesus, that's God is with him. Jesus is the new temple. And I think that's what he meant. Saying to them, you destroy this temple, I will raise it up in 3 days. And that's what he did. And the disciples knew that. And they see it. I'm pretty sure they remember the time he said this, that as soon as he died, 3 days, he was raised from the dead. And that's what made him believe in it more, and for them to preach it out more. And we kind of see it unfold 2,000 years later. And here we are still preaching about it and still trying to figure out, why Jesus did what he did. But Jesus was serious about his faith, and just like we should be, right? I think he's kind of saying we should be serious about our faith, right? The parishes we go to, this should be made for worship and maybe nothing else, right? And kind of, it says here the cleansing of the temple, kind of the cleansing of our worship, maybe. I don't know. I'm thinking too much about it, but I think that Jesus meant that he is a new temple, and that this is a house of worship, and that's where God meets man. But Jesus is now the new temple, and he's alive in it, right? And the disciples know that. And a lot of other people do, right? And that's what the last part says. Many believed in his name when they saw these signs he did, right? And that's what's happening. He understands that he is the temple of God. His Father dwells in him, just like the Father dwells in the temple, and just like the Father dwells in us. And that's why I think that where Jesus got so angry, that we are the temples of God, right? Just like in that verse, do you not know that you are the temple of God, right? That's what Jesus is so angry. Do not change the temple. I think that's what he's saying. Do not change the temple. And I guess we can kind of see it as, don't change your temple. Keep it holy, because that's what we're called to be. So that's what I think this gospel means in a nutshell. But that's all I have for today and this week. I think this will be our last week in videos because of spring break. So I hope you guys have a great spring break. And I will see y'all next time, okay? I'll see y'all later.